Episode 112 of the Wilderness Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Support the show at patreon.com/thewildernesspodcast. Our supporter of the week is Isaiah Peters. We're also brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/wild to get a free month and a free audiobook. Welcome to episode 112 of the Wilderness Podcast. I am your host, Dilz, and this is going to be the first ever fully solo show because unfortunately my usual co-host, Deegan, is unable to make it. But we do have a lot to cover as we have 2 weeks worth of updates and just events, things going on within the game that we need to talk about. First things first, the big event that had happened was the first ever PvP Championship All-Stars. They've done a PvP tournament before, but this time it's like their first championship that's going to be reoccurring. As for in-game updates, Jagex continues to balance out birds' nests when receiving them from PVM, as well as the bird houses. A few PvP changes, such as the anglerfish and the way they overheal in the wilderness, or PvP in general. The energy transfer spell from the Lunar Spellbook, and a little tweak to the Granite Mole. Jagex also rolls out the spellbook filters, allowing you to hide certain spells in your spellbook. The Bounty Hunter integrity changes get put in place in regards to the emblems, skipping targets, penalty timers, and the overlay in general. Some PvP changes, such as spec tabbing, an update to the Runescape merch store, and some information on the Deadmanmode Winter Finals and the Permadeath stage. And we also got some community stuff to talk about. Update on the progress of Lynx Titan, the player who is going for 200 million experience in every single skill. And if you're not aware, Blizzard, the gaming company that created StarCraft, Diablo, Warcraft, Overwatch, they have decided to roll out a classic mode for their World of Warcraft MMORPG game. Originally, they had decided not to do this, but they kind of went back on their word. Anyways, an employee on Twitter made a statement, and they mention RuneScape and the way RuneScape did it. So anyways, before we get into all of that, what did I do this week? God, it's weird doing this on your own. But anyways, my week has been pretty busy. My school's wrapping up, so I'm having to deal with some finals, and I got some exams coming up. So I've been busy with that, also with work, and some other real-life things that I just haven't had the most time to sit down and game too much. But luckily, I did have some time over the course of the last 2 weeks to play some RuneScape, and I'm getting a lot of skills close to 99, kind of all at once, which is kind of exciting. So I've been woodcutting. Since I don't have too much time to actually play RuneScape, I've been sitting down, working on my final projects, and I'm usually woodcutting on the other screen. I mentioned it last episode, I believe, that I think woodcutting is going to be my next 99. It probably won't be my next 99, but when it comes to actually skilling, it might be because I've been so busy, it's an easy skill to do very passively, even if I'm like at work, because my work is very slow at times. Where I usually do schoolwork, or I'll be doing schoolwork and playing on my phone, and I'll just be woodcutting. Or if I'm in class, I'll just be woodcutting while I'm listening to whatever lecture is going on. But I'm currently at like 10k away from getting level 98. But I haven't just been woodcutting. I have had some time to do some Slayer. I had my Dagonoth's task, so I went and ripped through like 180 Dagonoth Kings. Ended up getting like 5 warrior rings, which is, I don't know if that's lucky or not, because they are 1 out of 128. But it's the same chance of getting a Berserker ring from the same monster. So, I could have got 20 mil, but instead I got like 1 point something mil. So it's lucky and lucky at the same time. I don't know. But I do like doing that task. It's easy to do. You're killing 3 of them on repeat. It's kind of fun and engaging. And you can make some decent money, especially if you have your Fremennik Elite Diaries done. You get all the bones noted. And even if you don't get any unique drops or any of the big unique drops, you're still walking away with some nice money because they sell for something like 10k each. So if you're having to do 180 Dagonoth Kings, I'm walking out there with 1.8 mil in bones alone. So it's pretty nice. So while I was doing that, ended up getting 98 Slayer. So one more level to go for there. And I also ended up getting 98 Magic, because with Dagannoth Kings, you do need to use all 3 fighting styles. Since you're fighting the 3, if you don't know, you have to fight 3 different Dagannoth bosses, kind of at the same time. There's ways we can get some of them to not aggro you right at the beginning, but when you first enter the cave, your initial fight is going to be the toughest, because there's a chance of you taking on all 3 of them at once, and they can hit pretty hard. But once you kill the 3 of them, whatever one you killed first, he'll spawn first, obviously, and you kind of have like a 20-second grace period before the next one spawns. So if you go all out and you kill it fast enough, you're only fighting one at a time. But it's kind of fun because you're having to do like a speed test. You have to kill them before the next boss spawns. So that's kind of fun. You just have to start wondering, should I go all out with my prayers and all that sort of stuff? Or should I save my prayers? Because once you do kill all 3 of them, you don't really need to heal too much. You might have to heal a little bit, but there's different ways around it. Maybe you have your Saradomin Godsword, or you have full Guthans, or maybe you brought your blood spells so you can heal that way. But it's not the most necessary thing to have you don't need too many food in your inventory. So instead, you'll be having prayer potions instead to negate some of the damage you would have been taking otherwise. So you have to start balancing whether or not you're going to go all out with prayer so you can kill them faster, or you're going to maybe back off on some of your prayers so that you can do the boss trip would last longer. But anyways, yeah, with the 3 monsters, each one of them is doing a different fighting style against you. So if it's range, you're going to want to melee them. If it's mage, you're going to want to range them. And lastly, if it's melee, you're going to want to mage them. Luckily, with the melee guy, you can save spot him kind of close to the entrance of it. It's pretty easy to do that. So you don't have to worry too much about that monster there. But if the magic boss is ever spawned, you have to be praying magic, because he can hit you for like 50s pretty easily. So that's where it starts getting tricky, where let's say you're fighting the mage guy and the range guy spawns, or vice versa. You're going to be taking damage from one of them. Anyways, point is, I do enjoy that task. You can make some great money off of it. Like I said, Berserker rings are 4 mil now, and Archer rings are at 5.3 mil. I didn't even realize how much those went up. The only one you really want to avoid is the Warriors ring, because it's only worth like 120k, which is a lot more than it used to be. It used to be like 60k, but I believe since all these new players have been starting to play, some of these items have gone up in price. Like we talked before about the Obby cape going up to like 1 mil. So a lot of these old iconic pieces of armor are going up. So maybe the Warriors ring is in a similar situation. But if you even look at like the Dragon Chain body, it's at 1 mil, whereas before it was like 500k or something. So it's doubled in price, and it was even a little bit higher than that before too. So it does seem like some of these new players are coming in and they want the Dragon Chain, they want the Obby cape. Maybe just because they're familiar with those items, and back in, the 2006 era, those were some of the best gear available. So it is quite possible that the Warriors ring has gone up in price. Not a lot, but still it's doubled. So 120k versus 60k, it's kind of nice, especially if you get 5 of them. But yeah, on top of that, I am getting pretty close to 99 range. So that one will most likely be my next 99, just because when I'm slaying, if I'm not woodcutting, I'll be doing Slayer, and chances are you're going to be doing some sort of range depending on what monster you have, especially if you have a cannon out, and 100k is really not much. Whereas woodcutting, which I'm saying is going to be my next 99, but really it's my next, I'm actively working towards 99 skill. Whereas range, it's just kind of happening passively. Woodcutting, it's like when I have time, or if I don't have time, I'm going to be training that skill to 99 for no other reason except to get that to 99. And then I'll be moving on to my next skill, which I actually don't know what my next skill will be. Originally, I was thinking of bouncing between buyables and the AFK skills. So AFK as in fishing, woodcutting, mining, sort of. And I get rune crafting now that I can do blood runes. It's pretty AFK. And then buyables, I have left as my smithing, which is going to be a slow one unless I do blast furnace, but I probably would do a lot of AFKing with that. And then I guess crafting would be the other one. I guess prayer too, in a sense, but that one's, I guess it is AFK. It's great experience, but man, is it expensive. Then again, so is crafting. Crafting is very expensive as well. And then even looking at fire making right now, I'm at 90 fire making. That one it's not very AFK, but man, is it fast experience. And Wintertodt I don't mind Wintertodt. when I had to go from level 80, I think it was 80 to 90. It was over a year ago, but it was about a year ago. I was living in these Airbnbs while the house that I live in now was getting renovated. And I remember spending like 2 or 3 days after work doing fire making to get from either 80 to, I'm pretty sure it was 80 to 90. But I was growing like 3 to 4 levels every night because I was just getting so much experience. And it's kind of fun. You make a little bit of money, and the chance of getting a pet or some unique gear is kind of fun. I liked opening up the boxes and hoping to get some new piece of equipment or the pet. So I could see that also being on my radar as one of my next 99s too, just because honestly, I could get that into like if I had the time, and I don't mean like if I had the full day free to do it. If I just had like 4 hours each night or even like 3 hours, I'm looking at like a week to get level 99 from level 90. Because you're able to get something upwards of like 300k. It's been a while since I've done it, but I know the experience rates are around that, which is, it's pretty insane. Seeing how from level 90 to 91, I only need 400k. So what, we're looking at like 2 hours to get it, not even? And yeah, that's basically been my RuneScape week and my gaming week. I just haven't had too much time to sit down and play as much RuneScape as I would have liked, or even to play any other video games. But my school's slowly wrapping up, and I hope it'll give me more time for it. At least more time to do more engaging things. I haven't done too much bossing besides the DKs in a while. I haven't done like too much bossing with some of the people in the clan chat, or like I haven't done mini raiding, or I haven't even stepped into the wilderness really. Hopefully, it does feel like when you're playing RuneScape, real life comes in waves where you have a lot of time to play RuneScape, and you feel like motivated to get to progress your account, and then you get hit with some busy shit. You got to kind of step back and you play it when you can, maybe when you're relaxing and all that fun stuff. I think Deegan is kind of in the same situation. He's feeling, I can't speak for him, but I'm hoping next week he joins me on the Sunday for when we record. Unfortunately, though, he has been burnt out from RuneScape. He mentioned that last week. Those portals, those additional portals really pushed him over the edge, apparently. And then with his work, and then he's just been playing other games and doing other things, so he hasn't been the most motivated to play on RuneScape. But most people, you step away from a bit, and at some point it gets its hooks back into you and pulls you back into the game. It's happened to me every single time. When this game was first released, I didn't even play it that much, but I remember getting to like level 40 and I was doing Slayer. I remember I quit when I was doing the guard dogs at Ardone. And I decided to train my combat stats purely through Slayer, which meant at a low level, you're getting like the worst tasks like monkeys and guard dogs. And then also I was doing every clue scroll I could to make some money. Turns out it's like a terrible way of like making money. You can get lucky and get some big drops, but chances are it's not going to happen. And I just remember getting burnt out at some point and I just stopped playing. And this was when the game was like pretty much first released. And I stepped back for a bit, and then one day, I don't even know why, I just got the urge to kind of play it. I remember I was renting out this basement apartment. It's funny, I can picture exactly when I just got back into a game. But I remember sitting down and like, oh, I'm going to see what's going on in RuneScape, and jump back on, resubscribed, and started playing it. And then I got it back into it again. I think I got to like level 70 probably, 70 or 80, I don't know. But then I ended up again getting burnt out. Maybe I just didn't have time. Maybe I was too tired to, push through it, and just took a step back. And then I was at work one day, and when I was working construction, I was in a house, and I was with this other guy, and we were talking about video games. One of the guys who was doing the floor tile overheard us, and he came over and he's like, oh, video games, I know those things. And he came over and he was about our age, and he was asking us what games we play. So then we asked him, and then he said, oh, I play RuneScape. And I was like, damn, I haven't played that game in a long time. And he started, oh yeah, I'd like to play that game, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, cool, okay. Ended up going home, and now he kind of put that in my head, and I was like, RuneScape, what's going on in RuneScape? Jump back onto it. Then I got hooked again, but this time I got hooked real bad. Fortunately, I never really got his username. Started playing it, and down the road, I talked to my brother, and I was like, hey, we should do a podcast, because couldn't find a RuneScape podcast, and I'm a big fan of listening to podcasts. So, and then I got hooked right back into it. And even while doing this show, it comes in waves where I'm playing it as much as possible. All my free time is going to RuneScape. I want to level up. I want to do this. I want to do this type of content. I want to get my account ready for this. And then stuff happens, and then you have to take a step back, and you're like, okay, went a bit hard. Maybe got to slow down a bit. But at least for me, and for most people I see, you usually always come back. So we'll have to see how Deegan's doing as time goes on. Who knows? Maybe when the Kebos Lowlands comes out, he's going to want to check it out. But anyways, more news on that, I guess, as the weeks go on. We may visit our usual schedule next time we record for episode 113, or maybe the podcast is in a transition. Who knows? Stay tuned. I have no idea, and we're going to find out together, I suppose. Anyways, we're going to move on to the news, but yeah, thanks for bearing with us for this week and the past 2 weeks. It's just been hectic. It's been a hectic since October, where just everything's been in a huge transition. So we will find our ground, I promise you. Anyways, let's get into it. All right, our first dev blog is Bird's Nest balancing and PvP changes. So Jagex had noticed there's been an influx of Bird's Nests coming in, which has caused the price of Saradomin brews to crash, basically. And Saradomin brews have always been arguably one of the best pieces of food, or at least healing consumable that you could have. It's a potion that when you drink it, it does healing for 15% of your total HP plus 2. And it has 4 doses, so you can drink it. If you're at 99, you're healing 16, if my math is right. That doesn't sound right. But anyways, you're healing for quite a bit, and you can overheal it to a certain point. But the downfall to it is it lowers all your stats by 10% plus 2. Not all your stats, sorry, just strength, attack, magic, and ranged, while also boosting your defense by 20% plus 2. So anyways, it can be very good. You don't want to just, depending on what you're doing, you don't always want to just bring Sarah Brews, because you need to bring super restore potions to balance that out. Luckily, the two of them kind of go hand in hand. It's like peanut butter and jelly, because super restores not only restore your stats, but they also give you prayer points, which for most bossing, let's just say every bossing, you're going to be praying something, whether it's a prayer to boost your attack damage, your damage output, or maybe it's a protection spell to decrease or prevent entirely the damage you're taking. So since the prices had been dropping so low, Jagex did not want them to be cheaper than other pieces of food. It can cause this huge domino effect of food just dropping down in price, which it's nice if you're buying it, I suppose, but let's say you're out there fishing, or you want to train your herb lore. The herbs aren't really going to go down in price, because the experience from making the potions is something everybody wants, but the potion itself, if that goes down in price, it's going to be so much more expensive. At least if you're training it through making Cerebrews, it'll be so much more expensive to get that Herblore level. And that's a skill that's already so expensive. Or you can be like me and thought that Bird's Nests were going to be such a great item to flip, because Saradomin brews can never go down in price too much, because everybody always needs them. Well, I was wrong, at least for a couple months, and then I was right. But unfortunately, I already sold them. So by the time they started going back up in price, I was like, oh, well, don't even have the Bird's Nest anymore. So look at the Bird's Nest now. They're at 3,000 GP each. Just kind of depressing to see, because I bought them at 2.5k. I bought 15 mil worth. I had them in the GE for 3,000 from, I think it was June all the way up till September. Never sold. Dropped them down to 1.5k eventually, because I was like, I need to use some of this money for something else. Lost 5 mil or something in the process, and it's just kind of funny to see that if I held on to them, I would have made some money. But hey, that's just the way she goes sometimes. Sometimes she goes, sometimes she doesn't. This time she didn't. Well, she did eventually. Anyways. So what Jagex did to prevent the Saradomin brews from crashing too much more, or at least the Bird's Nest from crashing too much more, they have removed the Bird's Nest drops from Vorkath and Zulrah. Callisto doesn't drop Bird's Nest anymore, but instead is replaced with 30 Dragon Bones. But they did leave the Giant Mole's loot table unaffected. Giant Mole it's a pretty easy boss. It's one of the first actual bosses you'll be killing if you're looking into getting into the PVM scene. Doesn't have the greatest loot, but it does drop mole skins and mole claws, and you can trade it drops them every single time. So you'll get like 3 of them per kill. You can take those and trade them to the gardener, and he'll give you bird's nest in return. And it's been like that for such a long time that Vorkath and Zulrah are kind of more newer additions that just kind of got those bird's nests on their drop table because, hey, let's make some money off these bad boys. Whereas a giant mole, you don't really make money as it is, so let's keep the claws and all that stuff. Let's let them be tradable for the nests just because people should be able to make some money off this boss. So luckily with this change, prices have started to go up with them. Giant mole is now a little bit more profitable. The next thing they did to balance out the bird's nest is in regard to the bird houses. So I'll just read what they have here because there's a lot to unpack. Our goal is to reduce the overall number of bird nests coming into the game from bird houses, but leave them as viable passive hunter training methods. Bird houses are intended to be good passive experience at lower levels and rewarding through bird's nests at mid to high levels. As such, the experience rates remain unchanged. Many players within the community suggest making birds' houses untradeable, forcing players to be an equivalent crafting level to use the highest tier. However, this does not address the issue. Rather than making an overpowered activity exclusive to the high-level community, we would prefer to make it balanced and viable while leaving it available to all players. One of the key issues was that redwood bird houses produced as many as 12 bird nests on average per run. This requires 89 hunter, while bird houses produce only 2 fewer nests on average at 59 hunter. So redwood requires 89, gives you 12 bird nests. Use requires 59, 30 levels lower, and you still get 10. For this reason, making bird houses untradeable would not make them balanced. Moreover, fixing the scaling of bird nests being produced is preferable to simply increasing the time bird houses take to fill, as we prefer to avoid forcing a change how often players engage with the content. To achieve this, the overall number of nests received has been lowered. Rather than being determined solely by the tier of birdhouse being used, the number of nests received is now influenced by your hunter level. With 89 hunter using redwood bird's nests, you can now expect to receive 9.8 bird's nests on average per run, with only a small number above that at 99. At level 5 hunter using regular bird's house, 2 bird's nests will be received per run on average. So it does seem like because of the introduction of these bird houses, a huge influx of bird's nests were coming into the game. This change, it just requires you to actually have a higher hunter level instead of just being able to make tons of money with being a low level anyways. Next, on this dev blog, we have some PvP changes. So we talked about Saradomin brews and their ability to overheal. Well, there's another type of food that also overheals you, and that's the anglerfish. The benefit from this is it doesn't lower any of your stats, but since it is just a regular food, you can only consume it once. So this change, anglerfish no longer overheal if the player is in the wilderness or on a PvP or bounty hunter world, and has also been in combat or recently attacked a player within the last 10 seconds. So basically, if you're in PvP of any sorts, you won't be able to use this to overheal. At least that's what they're hoping for. Next is the spell Energy Transfer. It's a spell on the Lunar Spellbook, which allows you to give your special energy to somebody else. Players may no longer cast Energy Transfer on targets that have been recently in combat on PvP worlds. I know in the past you would see people sitting at Edgeville selling PvP special energy transfers. This way you didn't have to wait the 10 minutes or so or 5 minutes for your special energy to go back to 100%, because you don't really want to go back into a PvP fight if you don't have the energy to cast a special attack. And lastly is the Granite Maul. Players may no longer pre-queue a Granite Maul special attack. To me, all of these changes do seem pretty valid. I don't see any problems with them. They do seem like kind of overall their integrity changes, and Jagex sees fit for them to put these changes in, which is kind of good because before, for the longest time, they would not do these type of integrity changes unless they passed a poll. And I know we've mentioned it in the past if you've listened to previous episodes, but there's been the whole debacle of splashing in the past where you can kind of do that now, but before it was way different. You were able to go to Clan Wars and splash on another opponent, and you could do it for 8 hours. I think it was 6 hours. But what everyone did, and I did it a few times myself, you would set up for 6 hours and you'd go to bed. You'd wake up and you would have grown like X amount of levels, depending on what level you were when you did it. And that stayed in the game for a long time because Jagex felt like, well, if we're going to change this, it needs to pass a poll. And most people were voting very selfishly. Splashing like that is a terrible thing for the game, but I guess it's arguably a good thing for your account because you're basically botting. You're not botting, but you're doing this. The act is kind of the same thing. Everyone wants to be able to go to bed, come home, and now you went from level 7 magic to like level 40. That was easy. Those early levels suck to get through, but hey. So it's good that we're seeing them do these more often where they're just like, hey, this looks like a problem. Well, we're just going to go ahead and fix it. And they did. The next dev blog is labeled as Spellbook Filters and Bounty Hunter Changes. So they tried polling before they wanted to add a filter system to your spellbook. We see this in mobile. Yeah, they wanted to bring it to the desktop. So this allows you to kind of hide certain spells. Let's say you're only teleporting right now and you don't want to have, you don't want your spellbook to be filled with, let's count, 70 different spells on the regular spellbook. Well, you're able to eliminate all of them except for the teleporting. And you can do that for the combat spells, utility. You can show only the spells you have the runes for, or you can show only the spells you have the magic level for. With the first poll, they were offering to allow you to resize the spells, so your spellbook was still filled up, even if there was less spells, they would just be bigger in size. Many people were against this because it makes things like PvP a little bit easier, because now instead of having to click on something smaller, you can click on something a lot bigger, and it just makes it just simpler. You don't have to worry about misclicking if you're going to cast Ice Barrage. Well, the community was pretty against that, so they kind of went back and they pulled it again, and this time without being able to resize them, and it passed, so we have that now. But if you don't actually care about the filters or you don't want to be able to do it at all, you can right-click your spellbook icon on your tabs, and you can click Disable Spell Filtering. And now for some Bounty Hunter integrity changes. So similar to the Bird's Nests, this time more focused on Bounty Hunter. So right now, before, when you killed somebody in PvP, you had a chance of receiving an emblem. If you had an emblem in your inventory, that emblem would grow. Well, now, if you want to receive the emblem from your opponent, you need to have an emblem in yours. If you don't have the emblem in your inventory, when you kill your opponent, their emblem disappears. Also, in regards to emblems, you can no longer instantly destroy your emblem, and there will be a 7-second timer before being destroyed. I guess players would destroy their emblem mid-combat just to spite their opponent so they weren't able to receive a reward if the person died. The person destroying their emblem gets no benefit out of this. It's just a loss for the person who's facing that guy. Next, we have skipping targets. Players may now only skip their target if they haven't been in combat with them within the last 15 seconds. It's just a way to prevent griefing, it seems like. So you can't just go up, fight them, step off or whatever and skip your target. It's kind of a pain in the ass if you actually want to fight that opponent and they end up skipping you just to be a dick. Now, if you get a target and you go up to fight him and you notice he's unskulled and he refuses to skull, because that does happen, you can now skip your target without suffering any penalties. And same idea if your opponent does not have a mysterious emblem on them. So it'll tell you on the overlay whether they have an emblem or not. So if they don't, you can skip them the same way and you receive no penalty. If you skip too many people too fast, beforehand at least, you would hit a timer so you couldn't skip someone until like 5 minutes had passed, and it just got kind of hard so you weren't able to actually get any targets. Another change to prevent griefing is there is a 2-minute timer when a player leaves the wilderness with a bounty hunter target, but before, as soon as they enter the wilderness, the timer would stop. Now there's a 6-second period where it will continue to count down if they step back into the wilderness. This causes someone to not be able to jump back and forth and make the other person stuck with that person as a target. You can't fight them because they're not really in the wilderness and they just keep stepping out. It's just a thing people would do just to be a pain in the ass. And if you do PvP in the Bounty Hunter Worlds, you'll notice there's an overlay that displays your target's name, his what level wilderness he is, what his combat level is, the wealth he has approximately, the emblem he has, and it'll show your current record, whether it's your kills, how many kills you've gotten in a row. You are now able to hide this if you don't want to see it. And lastly, a change to PvP Worlds that has to do with spec tabbing. Players may no longer teleport for a few seconds after using a special attack in PvP combat on PvP or Bounty Hunter Worlds, This change should prevent players from unloading their special attack and then teleporting away for no risk. Players are also prevented from teleporting while their special attack bar is activated. So, what people do, or would do is they would run in, spec you out, and teleport. They would teleport whether they killed you or they would teleport just to maybe get their health back or something, and then they can come back and loot your body afterwards. Yeah, just some general changes to make it less annoying to PvP with. People always try to find loopholes just to be a pain in the ass, but Jagex is doing what they can to prevent that. And now the merch store. If you're not aware, probably are aware, but Jagex has a merch store where you can get some interesting things. Some of the newest additions now, at least, is that they've released the original soundtrack and the orchestral collection all in the merch store. And they have vinyl records of this and CDs. So it's not every single song, but if you go on Spotify, you'll be able to see the list. There's like 20 songs, I think, and they're the original soundtracks, and then they also got an orchestra to play them as well. And they're pretty well done. They've done a really good job, and some of the music is... well, it's really, we don't play with our sound on too often, but one thing that blows me away every time is just how good these songs are. They're original songs, obviously, but they're not just like on repeat. Some of them it's like 4 minutes of a progressive song that consistently changes throughout it. So it's a lot of work put into a game that's just like background noise. They have hundreds of songs and they're all fantastic. I'll throw them on sometimes, or sometimes when I was just like driving or something, I would just put on YouTube and look up old school Runescape sound or music, and I would just skip through them and then listen to them, and they're all just so well done for a game that's like 8-bit. Is it 8-bit? I don't even know. 16-bit, 30? I don't know. But it's so well done, and sometimes I feel like RuneScape doesn't always get the credit they deserve for how good their songs are. They got Guinness World Records for how many songs they have and for how many original songs they have. But yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check them out, and if you have Spotify, go take a listen. They're pretty good. Anyways, now on to some of the events that are going to be happening and have happened. Deadmanmode Winter Finals Permadeath Playthrough. So this week, on Thursday, they'll be hosting a beta playthrough of the final stages of the Deadman Winter Finals. It will be a first-come, first-served playthrough to ensure that the world will be at capacity, and that we get the best possible feedback. So it does seem like anyone can jump in as long as you make it in time, which is kind of cool. But do be prepared, this is a beta test, so there might be some problems. Obviously, the reason they're doing this is to see what the problems will be, so you don't have someone just being able to ice barrage somebody else in a 1v1. Anyways, some of the actual details. It is Thursday, December 6th at 3 p.m. GMT or 10 a.m. EST. It will be held on World 400. Once it starts at 3 p.m. or 10 a.m. or wherever time it is for where you live, there'll be you have 15 minutes to log in and prepare. So at 3:15 or 10:15 or again, wherever you live, 15, it will start. It will last roughly 90 minutes, but they're going to play through until it's completed. That's the estimated time. And everyone will be given identical armor, weapons, food, and stats. So it does seem like they've made some changes since, but normally in the 1v1 finals, it was the top 126. This time they say they're going to be going with the last 256 players. Deathly Fog will be moving a minute faster before the finals, so this way to eliminate more players. It used to be every 6 minutes it would creep in, now it's every 5 minutes. And as usual, Demonic Runes and the Falador statue are going to be the two final areas before the 1v1s, so you'll be selected to go there. Everyone gets kind of funneled into there, and you fight it out until there's 128 on each section. Then you guys all get teleported to the final 1v1s. So of course, if you do if you do participate in this, they would like to hear about all the bugs and some of the feedback that you have, whether it's, I think they prefer Twitter, but you can use their forums or probably even Reddit at this point. And if seeing this Deadmanmode tournament live is something you want to do and are able to do, they have a link in this dev blog where you can go buy tickets. The tickets are £11.75, or I guess if you're Deegan, Euro dollars or English dollars. I can't remember what he was calling them. But yeah, £11.75. It will be taking place December 15th on a Saturday between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. GMT. Location is the ESL Studio 1 in Leicester. I gotta figure out how to pronounce this one, because I remember it's got some weird pronunciation. A weird pronunciation that us Canadian folk don't know how to say properly.
Leicester,
that's what it was. Yeah, in Leicester in the United Kingdom. So you can take a look there. You must be You must be aged 18 or older, and you must have photo ID. Yeah, the event will be hosted by Mod Archie with Madaiza and Pure Spam. No Revan this time. Does that sound like some drama going on? Are we gonna have a drama episode coming up? Anyways, so yeah, looking forward to that. The Deadmanmode tournaments are usually pretty fun to watch. They do a good job with all their events. And speaking of events, though, we had that PvP tournament that went on about a week ago. But yeah, it was their first. They've done this before, but this is their first, like, flying in streamers and content creators to face each other. Whereas before, there was like a bunch of people got selected and they would play from your house, which led to problems with people accusing others of DDoSing, and I'm sure people were DDoSing, but it also allowed people to just unplug your router and, hey, I got DDoSed. Oh, then they would restart it. But anyways, this PvP tournament was hosted by Mod Archie was one of the interviewers who would go around talking to some of the streamers before and after their matches. Madaiza and Revan were both commentating on it, and some of the players who were at the tournament was Abyss, Alfie, Bodhi, Ditterbitter, Foe, Framed, Ian Spammed, Manked Up Mage, Mika, MMORPG, Mr. Mammal, Perp, Sick Nerd, Skidler, Skillspecs, and Torvesta. So it was a pretty exciting tournament. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it live because I was at work and it was busy. Too busy for me to bust out my laptop and watch it, but instead, I went home the next day and watched the whole thing. It's about 9 hours long. But the players who made it into the quarterfinals were Pure Spam versus Bodhi, Manked versus Skillspecs, Mika versus Ditterbitter, and Rakesy versus MMORPG. And then out of those players, Bodhi and Manked Up Mage made it into the semifinals, and they faced off. Ditterbitter and Rakesy made it into the semifinals, and those two faced off. Which left the final two to be Ditterbitter versus Manked Up Mage. And that left the winner to be Manked Up Mage. So congratulations to him for winning this tournament. He did a fantastic job, astounding. He actually destroyed this tournament. He didn't lose one single time in any of his fights. He was the unanimous winner. Unanimous? Undisputed. He was the undisputed champion of this tournament. And he is someone who has won some Deadmanmode tournaments. So this guy is extremely skilled at PvP and is not undeserved of this win. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. A lot of fights were kind of going a little bit back and forth, and so many of these players were just so skilled at PvP that it was just really fun to watch. And you'd see people going with different strategies. Like they all had to choose their items, and we talked about how they could bring a +1 item, and the +1 item was any item worth 5 mil or more. So you'd see someone walk in with the Elder Wand, and then he'd be facing off with someone who chose to take the Armadillo Crossbow. The guy with the Elder Wand was thinking, hey, I'll be able to land more freezes, because being able to freeze someone in a Tribid fight is very important. Whereas the other player was thinking, hey, I got my crossbow, and now I can use Dragon Bolts with it. And they'd be able to deliver more damage, whereas the guy who's taking the wand, they get more utility. Yeah, you get damage too, but really the freezes is so important because it prevents your opponent from moving. And a strategy you see everyone do is they walk underneath their opponent once they have them frozen, because this allows them to change their combat style, and the player who can't move can't see what they're going to step out and attack with, so you can't really pray accordingly. You kind of have to guess. So let's say has his crossbow out, and he steps out, shoots him with the crossbow, walks back in, maybe he's going to switch to melee, walk back out and use his whip. And now the opponent doesn't really know if he's going to be switching to melee. So he's going to take some damage because he doesn't have the right protection prayers on. So you saw a lot of pretty cool stuff like that. And within the tournament, they start off doing, I believe, so it was best 2 of 3. So you would start off with a 70 defense account and everything else 99. So you couldn't choose just this year gear or anything like that, but you could choose, like barrows and all that fun stuff. Start off with that, your typical Tribid fight, and then the next round would be a one defense pure with all 99s. So you couldn't just get comfortable in one style, you always had to switch it up. And one thing that I loved about the one defense is that you saw a lot of KOs coming out. You saw somebody who might have had full inventory of food and just get specced out. That's what I loved seeing. If you watch MMA, and I'm sure this comparison is kind of obvious, but I fuck it, I'll say it anyways. It's just me here. Who's going to say no? if you're watching like an MMA fight, a lot of fights tend to go to the distance. They go to like the last round and the judges say, oh, this is the winner because of the points. But it's super exciting to see someone get like a first round knockout or something like that. So that's what you would see with this. A lot of the fights went until somebody ran out of food, and it was just like an endurance fight, or whoever could exhaust 2 of their food first. But quite often with the one defense fights, you would see knockouts happen early on. So that was pretty damn cool. But yeah, the tournament was kind of what you would expect. We were talking before if we thought it was going to be a serious event or if it was going to be more playful and fun. And it was a little bit of both. There was some serious moments, but because it's Jagex, they kind of like to have some fun with it. And even just some of the players, they make mistakes, and the showcasters will not hold back when it comes to that stuff. So an example is one of the first fights that Skill Specs was doing, he forgot to bring his +1 item. So he was down a very strong item in his first match. I think he might have lost it. What was it? There was some there's some controversial moment where Alfie was facing, I believe it was Skill Specs. I'm going to see if I can find the clip and pull it up here. It was a little heartbreaking.
Talk to me.
Congratulations on moving on, and technical difficulties killed me.
You did really well. It was really interesting watching how you competed against different individuals. Against Skill Specs, I feel like you guys were actually quite closely matched. Do you feel like you should have won that last fight?
Well, I mean, on the first fight, I had 2 full brews left, and he was out. And then that got reset, but like you can't say, oh, he wouldn't have come back, so it was an okay reset. But, and then I was up a brew and 1 anger on the second fight, and then it reset again. And then on the last fight, it was really close. But the fight that went to the end, he ended up taking the win, so congratulations, and please win.
But what had happened, I think they restarted the match. Skill Specs changed out some of his gear, who was losing the fight at first, but when they restarted it, he ended up winning. Alfie was a good sport about it, but it was, a bit heartbreaking. You could see it in his eyes that he was pretty crushed, and he was very confident he'd be going through with the next round, and arguably deserved it too. So that was an unfortunate thing that happened there, but I guess it happens. It was, so it was a 9-hour event, which meant that Mod Aiza and Mod Revan, not Mod Revan, but just Revan, he's not a Jagex employee per se, he's just a shoutcaster who's kind of, I guess, contracted by them, but they were both shoutcasting for like 9 hours. That's a long time to sit there and be focused. You don't really, it's not very easy to stop and take a quick food break, to go have a smoke, to go use the washroom, so it takes a lot of focus. And if you're watching it, you know the night before that they were out with some of the streamers and they were, they were partying a bit, they were drinking a little bit, they probably went to the pub, but the reason I say that is because as the tournament went on, Mod Aiza began to look more and more tired, and his eyes began to just, when you like smoke weed and they're barely open, they're just like kind of closed a bit. He got to a point where he's kind of like that, and what I thought was hilarious is throughout, it hit a certain point, let's say a couple hours in, and Mod Aiza would drop that he would just casually mention how tired he was and how exhausted he was, and he still had like 6 hours to go. There's a moment, and if I can find it, I'm going to play it right here. But there was a moment where Mod Revan had to take a minute where he said, hey, I have to use the bathroom. This is an emergency. And he steps away from the mic for a bit, and Mod Aiza just goes, yeah, I really need a break too. And then he would just mention like, yeah, when Revan gets back, I'm going to have to take a little bit of a break too. I'm just exhausted. I don't think he ever left to take that break, but he did keep mentioning it. And then you can tell that he hit a certain point where he got his second win because he kept mentioning about how not tired he was anymore. It was just funny. It's understandable for a 9-hour thing, but when he drops like 5, 6, 7 times throughout it, you start laughing because he's kind of like a prisoner in this case. He can't just like, well, I'm going to go take a quick little nap. No, you got like 6 hours to sit down and actually focus on these fights. But things like that is why I love these sort of events, is why I love the old school RuneScape Jagex team, because they don't take it too seriously and like to have some fun. And it's fun, and there's some humorous parts within it. At some point, Mod Aiza was getting a little bit loopy from his lack of sleep, I suppose, and he would keep saying the word absolutely, and then I guess as he must have said it like a bunch of times in a row, and he became aware of it and got somewhat self-conscious of him saying it over and over again, but he just kind of rolled through it and played along with it, and it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to stop saying absolutely because I became quite aware of the fact that I'm saying it a lot now. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely saying absolutely an absolute huge amount of time. So let's absolutely stop talking about absolutely and move on to have a look at Group 3 and who is a part of that.
But overall, I did thoroughly enjoy this tournament. It was super cool to see. It was fun, and I do like these things. I like these events that Jagex does, and I always do because it's just that they're a fun company. Now that they have, I guess, the funds to do it, and they have a better management where they have teams split up and they can actually plan these sort of events better, they make it as serious as possible, but you still get that old school RuneScape charm that comes with it, whether it's in-game itself or on the production side of things, and with the shoutcasters, and even with Mod Archie, he would go up to a player and say, how does it feel to win that thing? And well, it feels good to have won that fight. He had joined them on the couch later to shoutcast, and he was kind of saying, man, my questions suck. It's hard to come up with these things, and they're all nervous and stuff, and it's good though. They have a little bit of personality, and they show some human traits with it. But anyways, that's about it. It was the final fight was really cool to see. Manked versus Ditterbitter. Ditterbitter being like 17 years old, I couldn't believe how young he was. Mainly because when I think about how old RuneScape is, 15 years old? It's actually like 16 now, I think. Anyways, he would have just have been like 1 or 2 years old less when the game first came out. So it's pretty interesting to see that like most people who are playing this game right now, they're in their like mid-20s. They played the game when they were younger, and they're just kind of carrying through. They probably played the game when they were like 10 years old. That's when basically I started playing, and here I am now. I'm 26 and still playing this game, and it looks like a large demographic of players who play it kind of went through the same process. So it's interesting to see when you have like a younger player where like 17, okay, you're not really young. We were probably playing RuneScape at that time, but especially in this age of video games, we got to compete against Fortnite. This game sucks them in instead. And it's not like a purely nostalgia thing where, okay, it's not nostalgia for us anymore, but when we first got pulled in when Old School RuneScape came out, it started off as nostalgia, and then they just did such a good job at upkeeping it that, hey, we stuck around. But there are some players who don't really have that nostalgia factor. They might a little bit. Maybe they started playing in 2012. It's not really the same, though. So again, congrats to Manked Up Mage for winning that tournament. Here's the clip of him winning. Here's his final interview, basically, of him, and then following Ditterbitter.
Thank you. I'll now make my way over to interview our winner, Manked Up Mage. No stranger to winning on this stage. You've got yourself $15,000 to add to your collection there. How's it feel?
It was good. It all paid off, The ego lost has paid off now. Really happy it all went through.
You're so ridiculously calm. I don't think you showed much emotion through any of those fights. Are you surprised you went 15-0?
Yeah. To be fair, because I've been watching everyone practice and everyone's done really well. There's been a lot of improvement from everyone, so I definitely thought I was going to lose a few, but got some. I didn't lose any, and got some RNG, so happy.
And how much of an advantage do you think it is playing on stage? It's almost like your home turf, whereas these guys are all playing away.
Right there, I was just chilling. It was very comfortable. At the beginning, when I was fighting Elliot, aka Skidler, he made me a little nervous. He started doing fakies. I was like, oh God. But yeah, after a while, it was okay.
All right. Well, congratulations again, Manked, on the 15 grand. You've also got this beautiful trophy I'm going to ask you to grab. Take it away. Hey guys, we're joined here with the second place loser of the finals, walking away with $7,500. You got 4-0'd.
Yeah, I did.
How does it feel?
So when this group first got announced, part of my practice was fighting all of them on fake accounts. They didn't know who I was. And I actually fought him, and I beat him like 4 times in a row on a fake account. But now that we now know, he's just been terrible on stream so that everyone underestimates him. And obviously that's worked out fantastically because he's been the best Brit here today. You've not lost a single round. He hasn't lost a single round today. No excuses for me. He destroyed me. Congrats on first place.
I think I can think of one excuse, maybe not. You're used to playing on some ping, whereas over here you have absolutely no ping. What was that like adjusting to?
That's not an excuse. I definitely got I probably played the best I've ever played because I'm on low ping, and he still destroyed me. So I'll take my 7.5K. Peace.
All right, it's as easy as that, Dinner. Thanks so much for joining us, and congrats on the second place finish.
Anyways, moving on to what we have to talk about in regards to the community section. So not a whole lot has happened, but we do have some information on our friend of Old School RuneScape, Lynx Titan, a legit titan when it comes to players in the game. He is currently working towards getting every skill to 200 mil experience, and we've been kind of following along with him as he slowly cracks through those skills. Well, he finally got his second last skill to 200 mil experience, which was, oh God help him, 200 million experience in agility. And he finally only has mining left to do, and he's about 23 mil away from doing that itself. So he is going to be the first player of Old School RuneScape to get 200 million in every single skill, and it's kind of interesting to see. That takes a lot of dedication. But a reason why I kind of wanted to bring him up today is because I had stumbled across his Ask Me Anything thread on Reddit that happened about 2 years ago. It was linked in that subreddit. He was pretty honest about it, and it was like kind of nice to see things from his perspective and why and how he might do some of these things. So I thought maybe I'll just go through some of the questions here and kind of get some insight on it. Because I know when we've talked about it, people are like, oh, I feel bad for him or whatever. Like, who can do that? But, you know, everyone's different. And if this is what he thoroughly enjoys to do, then, you know, if you're not hurting anyone, what's the problem? You know, let people do what they enjoy in life. I'm just happy that someone's they have a venue to get this sort of enjoyment out. Anyways, I'll go through some of the questions. And like I said, it was cool because of how honest he was about things and didn't seem to care about getting judged for it. So a user, Molted Iron, had asked, legit curious and not asked as an insult, on average, how many times do you go outside your house in a month? Lynx Titan replied with, I go outside for around 5 minutes every week. Digital Life said, it seems like your parents are kind of overly supportive of your lifestyle. Do they also play? Also, do you have any conditions such as Asperger's? And he replied with, no, they do not have RuneScape, and yes, he does have a condition of that sort. Which kind of makes sense. People kind of get... There are some conditions where people like to do these repetitive tasks, and it's like a comfort thing, and they enjoy it, and they're very set up in routine. And, you know, honestly, RuneScape's probably one of the best things you could do for it, since it just allows you to kind of to sit back and be able to do these repetitive tasks. Next question by Sam Malice. How do you keep the mentality of playing so many hours a day for so long? I did 15 hours a day average for 3 months straight, and I got completely burnt out. Lynx replies with, it is not hard to do it if you enjoy it, especially if you have music or other entertainment in the background. TBO says, how do you manage to maintain playing 18 hours a day? Does this not impact you hugely in real life? And he replies with, I play around 17 hours on average right now. I sleep for about 6 hours, which leaves me plenty of time to do other things, which leaves him about 1 hour. So I guess that covers all grounds for him. He's able to get what he needs to do in that 1 hour. And plus, RuneScape being so AFK, I can understand how you can maybe go make some food, or maybe you go brush your teeth, or, you know, you do these other tasks that these small tasks you do every day, but you can still do it while you're playing RuneScape. Ganja Dragon said, if you don't mind answering, what's your diet like? Do you get any exercise? I would assume for mental health as well as physical, you'd have an okay diet and got at least some exercise. Is that somewhat true? He replies with, I eat bread 3 times a day. Lynx replies with, I eat bread 3 times and lasagna once a day. I've done that for almost 4 years now. I do exercise as well, 60 push-ups and sit-ups daily, which I've done for 3 years now. I missed 2 days in February of 2014 when Jagex did a double experience weekend on RS3. So, you know, for someone who does play it lots, he is able to get some exercising in. And if you're someone who has like a routine you need to do every single day, doing 60 sit-ups and push-ups, it's quite a bit, but it helps out, especially if you're going to be gaming a lot, right? So let's see. Slayer1 says, what did you think about JMods at RuneFest giving Forsberg and Lynx Titan a Golden Gnome award, not knowing that you own both accounts? Did you bother contacting them later on to tell them? And This is before Invention was released in RuneScape 3, but they ask, will you get 200 million in Invention? Lynx replies with, it was fun to see. I did not expect to get any awards this year because in 2014, Jagex did not give any award to the current rank 1 in Old School RuneScape. I did not expect that they would give an award to rank 2 in RuneScape 3 either. Eventually, one of my friends told Mod Mark after the event that the 2 accounts were owned by the same person. And no, I will not be training the new skill on RuneScape 3. Topic Love says, are you going to do lavas till 200 million? What's your bank worth? And what's your favorite skill? And he said, yes, if I do decide to do rune crafting in the future, that's how I'll do it. My bank worth is around 1 to 3 billion right now. It is hard to say because I have Grand Exchange offers at all times that I update every day. And his favorite skills are Slayer and rune crafting. Rune crafting, that's what a saint. RSN Condition says, what country are you from? He replies, Sweden. Jack Oscar says, any plans to create any content, any like videos or streaming or the like? And he says, no, I will not be streaming. I've tried it before in 2012. It was all right, but it's not something I enjoyed to do. Same with videos. I made them a lot in 2011 and 2012. I will not be making them on a regular basis, but there is one video that I would like to make in the future. Morisor asks, what are your sleeping schedule? Are you overweight, average, underweight, and do you eat a strict diet? How many ults do you have? Lynx says, I go to sleep at around 11 p.m. every weekday, and 1 a.m. on weekends. My weight is 156 pounds, and height is 6'3". He has 7 accounts that he uses to buy things through the Grand Exchange, and he runecrafts on some of them sometimes. So Clean Bro says, when you finish your study, have your parents ask you to get a job? Would finishing your study impact your time played weekly? Yeah. And Link says, no, it will take me 5 to 7 years to finish school at my current pace. And people ask, how do you support yourself? Do you stay at home? Or do you have a job? He says, I live with my parents and I do not work IRL. Yeah, and that's about it. So yeah, just kind of interesting to see a little bit of insight, and I figured, yeah, it's just me here, so maybe I'll read stuff that other people talked between each other with. Yeah. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about is, as I had mentioned earlier in the show, Blizzard is coming out with World of Warcraft Classic servers, which means they're going to be bringing it back to the first year that World of Warcraft existed. Originally, they were not going to do that, but they were kind of convinced to do that. A lot of people pointed at Old School RuneScape and the success of it as to why they should try it. Someone had tweeted a Blizzard employee saying, expansions are a must for sure. Otherwise, it will die within a year or two. Old School RuneScape is a good example of this. They took a base game from a 2007 backup many people loved and built an entirely new game from that. Without new content, it would be dead now. The Blizzard employee responds, Old School RuneScape is brought up often as a successful model to follow for a classic revival. So it does seem like RuneScape is like a prime example of how you revive a classic server. They are the example of what you should do, and there are things you can learn from it on what you shouldn't do. But they were very successful with it, and yeah, a lot of people use them as points that they need to hit in order for them to kind of have a similar launch. Will Blizzard be able to do that with World of Warcraft? It's a completely different game, so it's hard to say, but a lot of people want it. I know I enjoyed my time in the older times. I enjoyed my time in World of Warcraft in the older days, less so than more recent ones. So who knows? Maybe they'll do a good job. Anyways, that's it for the news, and we'll move on. We're gonna skip lore this week, just because we're so behind. I want to get everything out, and I'm feeling a little bit mod Aiza. I'm getting a little tired. Anyways, not important. We're gonna move on to the Grand Exchange, though. So the first thing that I will mention real briefly is our Audible program, I guess, that we have going on. Go to audibletrial.com/wild. You can get a free month and a free audiobook. If you enjoy audiobooks, then you might enjoy, well, if you do enjoy audiobooks, you'll enjoy Audible. If you enjoy books in general, you might enjoy it as well. And if you don't enjoy books, you might also still enjoy Audible. So go check it out, audibletrial.com/wild. But if you want to support the show directly, you can do that on patreon.com/thewildernesspodcast. And our supporter of the week is none other than the beautiful Isaiah Peters. So I want to say thank you very much for supporting the show. And hey, look at this week. You're supporting just the one person, apparently, because the other person ain't here. I wish he was here so I could yell at him. But I'm just gonna have to play this back towards him so he can understand what I'm talking about. I don't know. I don't really know what we're going with. But thank you so much for being our supporter. Thanks for being just a solid supporter. We do greatly appreciate it. I saw one of the users and a Patreon supporter also made a comment on actually one of that same subreddits about how he's waiting for that Lynx Titan chair vape juice flavor. So people are loving that idea. I don't know how you make a vape juice flavor. There seems to be some sort of demand with that. We'll have to get on that while also brainstorming some other classic ideas. Maybe we can get the Wilderness podcast episodes on vinyl. That seems to be hot right now. We can send it. You guys can listen to it on vinyl. Maybe you can, if you're an old school DJ person, you can use the vinyl records and do some scratching and mixing with some of those classic beats. Anyways, thanks Isaiah for supporting the show, but also thank you to every single person who supports the show, and thanks to everyone who listens, really. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything. You guys are the greatest, and you allow us to do this week, what I do. Anyways, let's move on, though. So we got two things happening within the show itself that I will quickly run through. With our Connect 4 tournament being such a fun event, it was a great success. It was just a lot of fun to do on all sides. Been talking to a user named Chick who had come up with some other cool ideas like a RuneScape trivia night. We still have to iron out the details a little bit, but the date we are planning for is Friday, January 4th, right after the New Year's. So a good old New Year's or in the New Year RuneScape trivia night. There will be some rewards you can win as well. Last time we gave like 7 bonds away, thanks to Chick and RIP Ethan for donating to that as well. So keep your eyes and ears peeled as we give out more details on that. And the last other thing that's still slightly up in the air, but you know what? We're going to iron out some more details, but it's just a bit of a teaser, but it is set in stone a little bit. So the user Thunderslay was so kind to donate 15 mil for a giveaway on the show. So if you want to win, we're going to be doing 3 increments of 5 mil each. So if you want to be a winner of 5 mil, just keep listening and paying attention when we figure out how you can do that. And within the next week or two, we will have the details out just for that. So, but I want to say thank you very much to Thunderslay for donating that as well. It's super kind of you to do that, and it provides people who listen to the show some way to win some prizes, I guess. And it's fun for us because we get to, we get to set that up, and it's giveaways and events and tournaments and all that sort of stuff are just a lot of fun to do. I really enjoy them. Anyways, if you want to kind of stay in the know with the show, I like that. Stay in the know with the show. I should say that more often. You can join us in game at WildCC. You can check us out on Twitter at TheWildernessRS. Our Facebook is facebook.com/TheWildernessPodcast. God, I'm slurring. And we also have a group that you can join in as well that's linked on our Facebook. Our email is thewilderness.podcast@gmail.com. And our Discord is posted on both Twitter and Facebook. So if you want to join us on Discord, which is kind of a great way to kind of stay in the know of things too, because I post a lot of things on there about what's going on, you can do that through the link, or you can bug me or someone else in game and we can get you that link. And that about does it for me this week. And we had our song of the week was submitted by a user in the clan chat. I'm so sorry, I forgot to write down the name. But anyways, he's requested Town 2, which seems to be from the Orchestra album. It is an RS3 track. So it's going to be a surprise on which one you're going to get. But yeah, it's there. I can't even find the description for the Town 2. So we're going to go with the Town 1. Is a music track unlocked in the center of Varrock. Composer James H. Oh, there's a new name. So yeah, Town 2. Anyways, so this was a bit of an unordinary episode. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Again, it's been a stupid, crazy week with finals and personal stuff, and I've also been sick. I don't know if you could even tell that, but I'm getting over it now, so that's good. And yeah, that's episode 112 for you. So again, thank you guys so much for listening. You guys are the best. Much love to all of you out there, and at the very least, catch me next week for 113. Hopefully Deegan returns, but it's going to be a surprise for all of us, isn't it? All right, guys, take care. Thanks again.